Maria Hinojosa interviewing Sheriff Arpaio. Ryan Gabrielson, can you respond?
I wasn't able to hear the feed very well, but I certainly recall the interview. They were able to he was largely just either trying to avoid questions directly about our investigation and talk about the larger issue of immigration enforcement by his office. Or he, in some cases, said, yeah, we're looking into that. We're looking into some of the things they found, like the internal affairs investigation that they're conducting into their special victims unit, the people who are supposed to investigate sex crimes, where we found that in dozens of cases, they actually weren't, they were closing cases without ever actually opening without ever actually opening an investigation. At the same time, while they were reassigning, dozens of people to the human smuggling unit. So it's largely in that interview, he conceded a lot of points that we found in the series, which they also did before we started publishing.
Can you go through those major points? Again, congratulations for winning the Pulitzer Prize that has just been announced. You, Ryan Gabrielson, writing for the East Valley Tribune. The major findings in this 5-series report that you have co-authored.
Yeah, certainly. In the first 2 years the Sheriff's Office started conducting major operations targeting illegal immigrants, their response times to the most serious emergency calls just soared. Their arrest rate went from about 10%, which isn't terrific, but understandable considering a lot of property crimes. It went from 10% down to 3%. And we found a number of cases, particularly in the little town of El Mirage, which is their Sheriff's Office was responsible for protecting, violent crimes that weren't investigated. And we found similar instances in other communities that he serves, where cases that were supposed to be handled by the Sheriff's Office simply were closed without ever any real checking into it.
And what you think it's most important for people to understand outside Arizona, there's a tremendous amount of tension inside the state here. Outside, we hear, occasionally about Sheriff Arpaio. But to understand him in the context of Arizona, and also, now the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano, she was governor here.
Oh, most certainly. He's had national significance for a long time. He's really increased that a great deal with the immigration enforcement. He really changed his position on it. Before, in 2005, he called illegal immigration not a serious crime, but all of a sudden in 2006, he started focusing heavily on it, and it really raised his national profile. He and Janet Napolitano actually largely had a pretty symbiotic relationship. They worked with each other pretty well, until about a year ago when she shifted about $600,000 of the money he received for immigration enforcement toward a new task force that was charged with reducing Maricopa County's felony backlog, which is one of the largest in the nation. And is another major point of stress for the Sheriff's Office, because a lot of people argue that should be one of his top priorities. We've got about 40,000 outstanding felony warrants that haven't been served in Maricopa County, and his office is the repository for that.
We're going to break, and then we're going to come back to this conversation. We're with Ryan Gabrielson, just won the Pulitzer Prize for his coverage of Sheriff Arpaio here in Arizona. And we're joined in the Tucson studio here at KUAT, Arizona's public media, by Isabel Garcia, longtime public defender here just near the border with Mexico. Stay with us. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We're on the road broadcasting from Tucson, Arizona. We're broadcasting from the PBS studios of KUAT, Arizona's public media. I wanted to play another clip of Sheriff Arpaio. This is the sheriff on Stephen Colbert's The Colbert Report.
How would you answer these people who say you're focusing too much on illegal immigration to the detriment of other criminal cases? No. That's what those guys won the Pulitzer for today.
Really?
Yes.
After me?
Yes.
Wow.
Reporting on your sheriff's office,
wow,
focusing on illegal immigration as opposed to other crimes.
No, we don't do. We enforce all the laws of this nation, the county of Maricopa County. So that's just a cop-out. Stephen, because they don't want me to enforce the illegal immigration laws.
Now,
that's
you've
the
also...
bottom line.
That was Stephen Colbert interviewing Sheriff Arpaio. Isabel Garcia, longtime public defender here. Your response?
Well, it's obvious that he enjoys the national attention. The Congress is, of course, conducting an investigation about his conduct in Maricopa County and whether he's acting within the parameters of the 287G. Obviously, we think that Joe Arpaio is bent on waging a war on immigrants, that our government essentially permitted him that Arizona has become, in fact, the laboratory, and Joe Arpaio is heading up what we see as the direct consequence of these military kind of operations. The University of Arizona, along with other universities, have received millions of dollars to conduct border security initiatives research into the kind of techniques that Joe Arpaio is utilizing.
Explain what 287G is.
287G is part of the prior immigration law that permits local law enforcement to be trained and enforce federal immigration laws in some context. And so
the police become immigration officers.
Absolutely. It is a very dangerous precedent.
What's the problem?
And the problem is that the local law enforcement agencies, along with society as a whole, are becoming Border Patrol agents. That is really at the crux of this debate, not only with 287G, but with other pieces of legislation that have been introduced in the Congress, anywhere from STRIVE to the McCain-Kennedy to the Grand Bargain. All of them include pieces that are similar to the 287G and what Joe Arpaio is doing. We're on a very dangerous trend here, urging all the society to become immigration agents. And with police power, of course, with that bias and intent on being a Border Patrol agent, whether at work, whether at a restaurant, everywhere in society that it's pervading, the most dangerous, of course, is at the hand of law enforcement. And with 287Gs, with so-called training by the federal government, I think we're really on a slippery slope, and agreeing that our resources be devoted rather to real security. Real security means jobs, having food for one's family, having housing for one's family, education. Here in Arizona, we are being devastated that there is not money for education. However, we see Arizona exploding with the hiring of Border Patrol agents, the building of walls, the detention and operation streamline of 70 people a day are criminalized every single day with intent to have it become zero tolerance. This is the problem.
The Department of Justice opening an investigation, a civil rights investigation into Sheriff Arpaio. What is the significance of that?
Well, the significance is that there is national attention to this growing phenomenon of law enforcement becoming engaged in conducting federal immigration laws, not only through the 287Gs, but through other mechanisms that exist here along the border in Arizona. For instance, there's some cooperation as well. There's units. They're multidisciplinary units, whereas now Border Patrol is invading all this space. So this investigation not only focuses in on Joe Arpaio, who happens to be a very hateful man who has damaged many families and our relationships in Arizona, created a haven for those that are filled with hate and division. And so Arpaio may be the poster child for it, but we think that this debate and this investigation, into Joe Arpaio may open up the truth. We're hoping that they look at really the hypocritical notions that we have going on here. From encouraging immigrants to come here for over 100 years, specifically from Mexico, to now saying, oh, we don't want you here and you're violent, and of course blaming all of the ills. It's really unfortunate that we're being allowed to utilize the so-called failed, miserably war on drugs in order to militarize our border and really the rest of our society. So we're hoping the investigation of Joe Arpaio will not only rid us of Joe Arpaio, 287Gs, but hopefully will open up into a real needed dialogue by the American public into immigration and security.